Hello, welcome back to the Roker Rapport Extra. You're back with us again. It's me talking about Birmingham again, which has been a big feature on this podcast the first few weeks. Every team we played had played Birmingham the week previous. Then we played Birmingham. Now we played Birmingham again. It's only, I think, by the time we played them, 38 days since we last played them. Something like that. But my maths was never my strong point. But as it was, we had Chris from the Tilton Talk last time. Guess what? I liked him that much. I actually invited him back. How are you doing, Chris? You well?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, yourself?
Not too bad, mate. Yeah. Feeling slightly better after Saturday, but I feel like I was in that sort of mood last time I spoke to you because we just beat Fulham, I think, around that time. How was the mood at your end? Because things have perked up, haven't they?
Yeah, I was just about to say, the last time we spoke, you guys were in confident mood after a 1-0 home win. It's the same story this time round. Yeah, from my perspective, things have picked up a little bit. I think I was a little bit doom and gloom merchant when I came on a month ago, but things have picked up a little bit, in fairness to the manager, whether he's listened to the fans or realised that actually his way of going about things wasn't necessarily the best, and he's put round pegs in round holes, which the Blues fans have been delighted with. He's got the best out of Sam Gallagher, who's looking our main goal threat. Jack McGomey is playing out of his skin since Boxing Day, and we've got our best goalkeeper in goal, and our best two centre halves are playing. And yeah, so I think things are looking a little bit rosier than they did a month ago.
It's strange because I remember the conversation. Obviously, I came on your show for a bit as well, and I said I felt overconfident, and I said I thought that we got the monkey off our back after we beat Fulham. I thought we'd go and play Birmingham, who, I've got to be honest, at that point you were looking pretty horrendous. Like, looked like you could be cut adrift at the bottom at that point. But I remember when you came up, and me and a few of the lads and a few of the people who go to the matches, we were actually quite impressed by the way you played. I thought you were the better side at the stadium, right?
Yeah, like you say, before that game, at that point, we were on a really bad run. Our away form was dreadful, and obviously, I think Coleman was 3 or 4 games in, and he was looking like, he was turning things around, and there was a lot of pessimism around the club and that game in particular. Obviously, knowing how big it was with both teams that down at the bottom, but I think you're right that sort of signalled a little bit of a start of the optimism, especially with the fans. I think the first half, especially, I think the fans were pretty impressed at how we went about it. Sam Gallagher, like I said, played up front. Not left wing, not wasted out on the left. He played up front, and he looked a handful. And we had our better midfielders, if you like, getting in and around, and we created a couple of chances as well in that first half. And I think obviously it was disappointing to concede so quickly after opening the scoring, and then the second half was difficult with Gallagher getting sent off. It was a bit of a backs to the wall mission for that last half an hour or so. But yeah, I think that was a little starting point. We were pretty disappointing at home to QPR. We lost that on, I think that was before the Sunderland game. And then on Boxing Day, we lost at home to Norwich, which Gallagher missed because of the suspension from Sunderland. But since then, apart from losing at home to Derby, who I have to say were really impressive on the day, we have looked a lot better than performances a couple of months ago, and things are looking up a little bit. And
it's a funny league. I've mentioned this many times, and I spoke to a Hull fan last week who, to be honest, I thought, like mine and your podcast, so the first one we did would be the most depressing of the season. But if you're ever feeling like you want to depress yourself a little bit, it's probably worth going back listening to that whole one, because okay. Geez, it was he was pretty sad, but he did say something that really resonated. He said, I'm actually disappointed at how bad this league is. He says, I remember with the season they got promoted, and he said the quality was quite good, and coming into it, I really think, and I'm coming in off the back of a win, but it looked not that long ago like Birmingham for me would be like cut adrift, but a couple of wins against teams that are classed as playoff hopefuls, I would say. And your second bottom, yes, but you could quite easily get out of it. There's many teams that could get pulled into it. I was just looking at the table there, and Reading are only 4 points clear of relegation, of yourselves actually, and ourselves. Anyone can get pulled into it, because it just seems like anyone can beat anyone. It's just about putting that run together, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I was looking at the table a couple of days ago as well, like you guys have done, and you could probably, right now, coming to the end of January, there's 3, possibly 4 teams that really haven't got anything to play for. There's about 10 that could be looking at playoffs, and then there's about, like you say, 14 or 10, 11 who could still possibly go down, looking over their shoulders, and And you're right mentioning the likes of Hull and Reading, who on paper, shouldn't be anywhere near the drop zone, but Hull have been dragged into it. Reading are one of those that succumb to our little upturn in form. We beat Leeds. You mentioned the playoff hopefuls. Leeds came to us 2 days after we lost home to Norwich and were really, really poor. I was very surprised at how poor Leeds were, and we deservedly beat them on the day. It was obviously it was a little bit nervy our end going. We left it late, but it was a little bit nervy. But then going to Reading a few days later in the new year, we bossed that. We were really good at Reading, and they were really poor. And like you say, these are teams that on paper, like ourselves, probably shouldn't be anywhere near the bottom. But with circumstances going against them, bad managerial choices or player choices, they are in a scrap and they are looking over their shoulders.
I feel like sometimes like a broken record, but I've repeated this a few times. I really feel that this league, it just goes to show the teams that are down there. I don't think it's about ability; it's about wanting it and having organisation, isn't it? And I think sometimes, if you look at like Birmingham, Sunderland under Grayson, probably a little bit unorganised, not really a plan going forward. It seems like Cotterill's got some sort of idea of what to do going forward, and Coleman's, I mean, fair enough, we've lost some pretty poor games under Coleman, don't get me wrong. One win doesn't fix everything, but we certainly look a lot more organised under Coleman, like we've got some kind of idea of going forward. And the players on the pitch that we had on Saturday were on name basis. I mean, Didier and Don cost £13 million. And then you've got Ethan Robson, who's making his debut for the club. Like I didn't think he'd get anywhere near the team. If I'm honest with you, he's 21. You think it's done for him. But he had a better game than Dong's had all season, essentially. And I know it's one game, but it's because he seemed to know what he was doing in that team. Coleman seemed to have drilled into them what the idea is. And like you said yourself, Cotterill, from your side, he's put, round pegs in round holes, and it's working for you.
It is, and you are 100% right with what you're saying about organisation. And the one thing Cotterill has done that has impressed me and other Blues fans as well is dropped Michael Morrison in defence and given Harley Dean the captain's armband. We got Harley Dean from Brentford, one of the many players we nabbed from Brentford towards the end of the transfer window in the summer. He was their club captain, and Cotterill's give him the captain's armband. And since then, apart from Derby coming and turning us over, which they've done to many teams this season already, we have looked a lot more organised. And Blues fans are one, and I think Sunderland are probably the same. Sometimes you say you don't mind if you lose, but at least you show a little bit of commitment, a little bit of passion, and but sometimes you've got to get that to get out of trouble in this division as well. You got to show a little bit of quality, and that has resonated, and that's come about in the last couple of weeks. Since the turn of Christmas, we have shown a little bit more quality. We're a little bit better on the ball. I'm not saying we're like Barcelona now, but we're a little bit better on the ball, and we look a little bit more threatening going forward. And with Dean and Roberts at the back, as the back two, and Stockdale in goal, we look a little bit tighter at the back as well. Roberts made a poor error at Preston at the weekend. We drew 1-1. It's his defensive error which they scored from. But even then, we didn't give up when we might have done earlier on in the season, and we managed to sneak a point from it.
I remember the first time we spoke, and I remember at the beginning of the season, and possibly even the back end of last season, I think when we knew we were going down, we were sort of linked to Sam Gallagher, and I remember thinking that's quite a good move. And I remember, like, obviously you went to Birmingham, and I remember we were chatting, and I was saying, he hasn't really hit the ground running. I was looking through your stats, and I said, he hasn't scored many, and you were saying he played on the left wing. I mean, you've mentioned a few things have changed, as you said before, players in the right positions mainly, but what else has changed? There's things like putting Sam Gallagher up front just give your team a new dimension, because he's a big boy. He's not a winger.
That is for certain. He is certainly not a winger. He's 6'4" plus, if anything. But he's quicker than he looks as well, and he'll run the channels, and he tries to hold the ball up really well. And I mentioned Jack Magoma as well earlier on. He's someone that has, I think he's benefited from having Gallagher up front, because Magoma's now got the confidence to go at players and try and get the ball into Gallagher, where before he had, whether it was Lucas Jutkovic, whose legs aren't like what they were, or Che Adams, who is, when he's played up front, you've got to knock it in behind and get him chasing it. But but Gallagher gives you a lot of other options, and Magoma's certainly benefited from that. He's looking a lot more lively, and Jeremy Boga, the other side on the left-hand side, has started more regularly now. And every time he gets the ball, you think sometimes he loses it because he's trying one or two things, but you want that bit of spark from your attacking players, and he's someone as well that looks very direct. And when he's running at players, our second goal at Reading, if you get the chance to have a look at it, is really good attacking play, really pacey from Boga. He beats a couple of men on the halfway line and runs at the Reading defence, turns them and lays in Gallagher for Gallagher's goal. So yeah, I think the front three are looking brighter, a bit more lively, and the back five is more set. It's settled now. It's more solid, and we do look a lot better outfit than we did when we were talking before our game at your place.
And you mentioned about having a back five there. Is that the formation that you've reverted to? Have you always played that formation, or?
No, sorry. When I say back five, I mean the back four plus the keeper. I meant.
Oh, okay.
So we have since the Sunderland game, we've pretty much stuck to. It's been the same team mostly week in, week out, and it's a 4-3-2-1, if you like, with Magoma and Boga supporting Gallagher up front. But it's a back four, with Stockdale in goal, and that's, we're looking a lot more solid with that.
We're just talking about that on the last podcast, and I remember you saying that I can't remember if it was on your podcast or if it was on ours. We were talking about Stockdale, and he'd been injured for quite a while, hadn't he?
Yeah, he had. I think it was a wrist injury. It was defined as, there's quite a lot of rumours that it was a training ground bust up between him and another player where he got his broken wrist from. There was a bit of rumour about that, but it's good to have him back in the side, and maybe this sums up where we are this season. That in possession, he's probably one of our best players in possession of the ball. You'd rather have him in possession of the ball than some of our midfielders at this season. His distribution is very good. He's always alive to a quick clear out and to get us going a bit quicker. But he's made a couple of crucial saves as well. The Leeds game where we won at home, we won 1-0. When it was 0-0, Leeds had a really good chance where they broke through with about 20 minutes to go, and he pulled off a really big save. Clean sheet at Reading, and Burton at home in the cup as well. So I think generally Stockdale, when I mentioned on the show when I came on last time, Stockdale, Boga, Gallagher in his right position, Harley Dean. These players weren't in the side or weren't in their best positions, and now they are. Sometimes football's a pretty easy game.
I can't remember which fan I was speaking to, but I remember saying that football is sometimes an easy game played by idiots, and sometimes if you've got like left backs at right back and all that kind of stuff, and I think that's one. I mean, I wouldn't say Sunderland have an upturn in form, but on paper, if you look at the form under Grayson, and we've won I think 4 games under Coleman, where it was 1 under Grayson. Coleman's very much brought in that 3-4-3 or that 5-3-2 formation that he sometimes changes around. And I really feel like because the players, he hasn't, even though we've had a lot of injuries, he hasn't negated from that either. He's kind of stuck with it, even if it meant putting like Adam Matthews at centre back. And sometimes it hasn't worked. But I mean, I'm talking very positively because the win over Hull was a very good one. But at the same time, having players in a formation that they're used to, that you're training in every single week, it can't be a negative. Surely it can't. I think what we just simply lack sometimes is just genuine quality.
That's certainly the case for us as well. Like you say, the understanding of the players and, the way they train, we've known since Boxing Day that we're a 4-3-3, and, unless there's an injury or a suspension, we're pretty much going with the same 11 week in, week out. At the moment, it means Che Adams, who has come back from injury. At the moment, it means he can't get in the side. It means Hotter, our 6 million record signing, still can't get in the side at the moment. But at least we're a little bit more, a little bit more aware and a little bit tighter, and everything's a little bit more understandable with the players. Like you say, we're not Barcelona. We're not passing teams off the park, and we're still giving the ball away a little bit too cheaply in midfield. But we're better. We've got something to look forward to. We've got something going forward.
I think when I was expecting you to be really, really poor, and I think that came across in a few chats that we had. But I think watching what Hull produced on Saturday compared to what you produced against us on, I think just before Christmas, the 23rd, was, I honestly think you could quite easily get out of it. Hopefully not at our expense, but
no, yeah, of course, yeah.
I've seen a lot worse sides, and if that wasn't just a one-off and you've continued on, I think from an outside looking in, if you've continued that form, it's very good. And you mentioned about Stockdale before, and I was going to touch on that before, the importance of having a good, at least trustworthy goalkeeper between the net's massive. I think back to this season, I mean, Jason Steele is the worst goalkeeper that I've ever seen. I'm not even sure he is a goalkeeper. and Reuter is marginally better, but he's still prone to like a huge clanger. And I think if we had someone, I mean, we've been linked to Andy Lonergan, I think, from Leeds, which would strike me as a little bit of a Darren Ward sign. I remember bringing Darren Ward in when he was 33, 34, and he wasn't spectacular, but he was certainly steady. And I think there's a lot to be said for having a steady goalkeeper, because suddenly your defence is not shiting themselves every time a ball comes in the box.
Yeah, you're bang on the money. I think looking at your Twitter account, I think there was an under 23 or an under 19 game for Sunderland, and your keeper looked pretty good, and his distribution was excellent for one of the goals, and you captioned it, "Get him in the side." So it's pretty clear that there's a concern with your goalkeeping issues. I mean, you said about Lonergan, there's one of Thomas Kuszak's going. It looks like Derby are looking at him, as a second choice keeper, because he's not going to get game time with Stockdale. I think Kuszak is one that could be offloaded. He's someone that's certainly a experienced stopper. He's a very good shot stopper, and someone like that might come in, for a side like you and help make that defence a little bit more confident, and get you a little bit tighter in defence.
We were linked to let me think. We were linked to Kuszak. Yeah, we were linked to him in, I think it was under Grayson, I think, because I think he had him at Preston.
Okay, yeah.
I think he had him at Preston, and we were linked to him in the summer, but then we signed Jason Steele, which I mean, I'd love to know whose idea that was, because I mean, I know football. I know we're very fickle as football fans, and that's the way it is. That's football, and the players and the managers have to deal with that. That's the way it is. But I think when I watch Jason Steele, and I don't over exaggerate this at all, I don't understand how he became a professional goalkeeper, because he's woeful. If you watch the second goal against Middlesbrough, I mean, forgive me for swearing. Oh God, yeah, in the cup.
Yeah.
It was so. Did you see it?
I think so. Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that one. Yeah.
Dear God, I mean, and the weird thing is, Reuter came in at the same time, and Reuter actually had a really good pre-season, but for some reason, Jason Steele kind of got the nod, and then he came in the cup against Carlisle and had a really good game, and everyone thought, oh, just get Reuter in. So I think the whole clamour for a goalkeeper kind of died down, but then as soon as Reuter got into the team, he just made loads of mistakes as well. And I mean, he's been all right recently, not perfect, but he's been all right recently. But I remember when Stockdale first went to Birmingham, it was quite surprising, because obviously he was going up with Brighton, and there's obviously reasons behind that. But I think a lot can be said for having your number one goalkeeper, who, and I think Stockdale's arguably probably the best or one of the best goalkeepers in the league as well. So
yeah, I think he was voted best goalkeeper in the division last year with Brighton when they went up, like you say, and it was a surprise for us as well. I think we gave a new contract to Kuszak and one of our young keepers, Connell Truman, as well. So when the first signing of the transfer window was Stockdale, we were, there were a few eyebrows were raised, and that probably started off the crazy hype that we're making a real big push for promotion if we're going in and signing this caliber of player. But yeah, he's shown, listen, Kuszak, like I said, he's a steady, reliable keeper, but you can tell that Roberts and Dean and the back four have a hell of a lot more confidence with Stockdale behind them. Like you say, it just takes a weight off the mind of the defence, and he's good at coming for crosses. His distribution's very good. Like I say, that I'm sure that'll help us out in the season with the games to come. Trying to hit teams on the counter, you've got someone with that distribution in goal. It's a definite plus point. Yeah, so I think he's one of the many reasons why we've had an upturn in form the last 4 weeks.
It's funny, whenever you mention a goalkeeper with good distribution, I just get this horrible pining for Jordan Pickford. It's awful.
I bet, yeah. That was only a year ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it was his distribution was. I mean, we would at first it was a joke that he had better distribution than the players, but he genuinely does. Like his distribution is.
I said on our show a couple of times, I'd love to see Stockdale in our midfield.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
keep the ball a hell of a lot better than some of them.
It's like, I mean, last season it was points where like Cattermole or Stephen Pienaar, God, Stephen Pienaar, that's a bad memory. A very bad memory would not be able to pass the ball like 5 yards, but Jordan Pickford could ping like a side volley of like 50, 60 yards straight on someone's foot. And it it depending on the style of football you play. I mean, when you came to the stadium, you're quite a possession based side, I felt.
Yeah, I think that's the aim. I don't think we've got the players to blow teams away, if you like, to score 4 or 5 in a game. But obviously, the longer we have the ball, the better, because we weren't as organised. Our confidence was pretty shot at the time, and obviously, the more the opposition had possession, the more we were under threat, and our confidence was shaky, and it was causing us a lot of problems. So I think that's something I think they've definitely worked on trying to be more flexible, trying to be better in possession, and the movement has improved. Like I said, the front three starts for the front three. If their movement's better, then there's more options for everyone else on the ball. And I think that has been the way we've tried to go. Like I said, we're not blessed with technically brilliant midfielders, but they're trying, and they're better than they were a month ago.
You mentioned last time you were on the podcast, I remember actually almost word for word, you said, I think if we don't get a good result at Sunderland, which you did, to be fair, I think Cattermole might be hanging by a thread. So
yes.
At that point, and obviously I came on your podcast and I felt the same level of kind of universal, he's not the right man. So we're actually only 38 days down the line, right? But things can change very quickly in football. What are your thoughts on Cattermole just now? And what has he changed in his own demeanour? Because I know from him being at Sunderland, he can be quite a dour bastard, for want of a better word.
Yeah. No, like you say, a month. It's been a month, and it's been a hell of a long month, when you look at it like that. But I think there's still reservations. The Preston game at the weekend, we got back to 1-1 with half an hour to go, and he left it very late to make substitutions. And I think that's a side where you look at the likes of yourself and under Coleman. I think if it's 0-0 with half an hour to go in games, the likes of Coleman and other managers, Nigel Clough at Derby, for example, at Burton, you'll probably get them going for it a little bit more. I think Cottrell's still a little bit concerned about that we're not technically the best team on the ball and in possession. So I think that's probably why he's leaving substitutions very late, because he doesn't want to disrupt what has been working so far. This 4-3-3 with the same team, if you like. That's my concern. Possibly still a little bit negative in that sense. I'm almost certain the game against yourselves, he'll go with that 4-3-2-1, if you like. Whereas he could play Che Adams, or he could play Hotter instead of one of the two defensive midfielders, if you like. Especially like, as you've said, you don't exactly pack that midfield. You've got 5 at the back, and I'm not expecting you guys to come out and try and attack us from minute 1. But I'm almost certain he'll go like for like and play that 3 in midfield. So I think there are still reservations about Cottrell. But in the last month, I can't say too much bad about him, to be fair. He has learnt from his mistakes, and you've got to give him credit for that. He's playing the right players in the right positions, and we are on an upward curve at the moment.
I kind of, when you were speaking about Cottrell at the time, I just remember thinking, yeah, he's not going to last. Like, I don't rate him. Yeah, I think it looked very much like that from the outside looking in. And as we've said, it's been a month, 38 days officially between the times that the sides have played. But I think we forget that inside that time, you've got the FA Cup third round, you've got like 6 or 7 games, it feels like, in this period of like 48 hours. It sometimes feels like Christmas. And I mean, I personally love that, but you only have to look at like Sunderland over the Christmas period. We beat Nottingham Forest 1-0. It was a bit of a smash and grab, but in my opinion, a deserved win. Then we played Barnsley at home, and you think, look, get another win here, and it was dire, and we got beat 1-0. And
that was the big surprise for me, because you'd beat Fulham at home, and then, like you say, you went to Forest and won, and that Barnsley at home, and then Cardiff away, was it? You got pretty convincingly beat as well. But Barnsley at home, I thought, what an opportunity to get a real run going there, and then you lost that one at home. I was very surprised about that one.
It was awful. I mean, that was that I was saying to a few of the guys sort of beforehand. I think it was the Hull fan. I took a bit of a break for a couple of months. I've been a season ticket holder since '97. I travel from Glasgow, so I feel like I've had my innings sometimes, and I feel like
absolutely,
I don't have anything to prove to anyone. So I thought I need a bit of a break here, and I think I didn't go to a game from Middlesbrough in the league away from home, and I thought, we'll beat Forest. I thought I'll go back. Maybe now's the right time. And it was weird being away from the stadium for so long and coming back for that Barnsley game, because it felt even worse and the performance was so bad. But then on the flip side, we went and beat Hull in a huge game with, honestly, there was a lot of young boys in that team. We had Ethan Robson making his first league start, Joe Lasora making his first league start, Josh Madger, he grabbed the headlines because he got the win against Fulham. But the big thing about that game on Saturday was Cattermole came back to form, and Lee Cattermole has got that ability where if Lee Cattermole plays as we know Lee Cattermole can, he's not just an important player, but he's a huge talisman. And we love Lee Cattermole. We always have. He's just been so bad this season and so frustrating. You kind of think, is he been the problem the whole way along, or has he been part of the problem? Sorry. But he was brilliant on Saturday. He had a very good game, and I think if the young boys are making, the old experienced pros really up their game, we could potentially pull ourselves out of this quite fast. But Sunderland being Sunderland, we'll probably go to Birmingham and get absolutely tanked.
I don't think we'll tank anybody this season, so I don't think you've got any worry about that. But it's very interesting listening to you hear about Cattermole situation, and I don't know whether poisonous is the right word, but it's felt like that at Blues as well at points this season. When we were on our bad run, you start looking around at players that for the last 18 months have been really, really good for Blues, and you're looking at them now and they're not the same players. And you mentioned that midfield talisman. I could put David Davis into that. David Davis, since he's come in from Wolves on a free, has been brilliant. He works his socks off every game. He's not afraid to get forward. He loves a tackle like Cattermole does. But since Zola came in and then Redknapp and under Cottrell, he really has gone missing, and it's taken him to be dropped a couple of times from the team. But I think the message has finally got through, and he's starting to look a little bit like the player he was before Zola came in under Rowett. He's been given the most advanced role of the three midfielders. He seems to be relishing that. He's getting around the pitch a little bit more, and like you say, those important players, those experienced players, your big names in the team, if you like. Cattermole certainly has been at Sunderland long enough to know what is required in that team. If those players can get going, then everybody else flourishes around them.
This season, I've hated Lee Cattermole, and I think I've been quite open and honest about that. And he's a player that I've loved for a long time, because Lee Cattermole before this season epitomised what Sunderland fans like in a player.
Yes.
He's a bastard, but he's ours. He's our bastard,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But we came up against, obviously, one of your old boys, Seb Larson, on Saturday, and he was bursting through on goal. And I think it was at the last minute, and he was running clean through. And it was typical Lee Cattermole. He just took the foul and just took his legs. But it was the motion afterwards was truly Cattermole. Truly Cattermole would do that, and then he'd walk over to the play and be like, "Sorry, mate," with a little bit of a glint in his eye, and then walk off like nothing had happened. And he did that. Yes. And you were like, hang on. But I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I think Lee Cattermole, I mean, I'm judging this all on one game, but the young lad next to him, Ethan Robson, was excellent. He did a lot of the groundwork and helped Cattermole. Cattermole could kind of just play his game. He didn't have to cover every blade of glass, which I think sometimes he's trying to do and failed miserably, because I don't think Lee Cattermole is as good as he thinks he is, but he's also a lot better than I think the general consensus of, or the football UK public is aware of. And I think sometimes he does things that he doesn't need to do. And I think having a young, energetic lad next to him, and Ethan Robson, really helped his cause on Saturday an awful lot. But I still have my reservations about Lee Cattermole this season. But if he can perform like we know Lee Cattermole can, that Lee Cattermole for a long time was a talisman for us staying in the Premiership. So we'll have no problem in the Championship. I just hope to God it wasn't a one-off.
Yeah, and I think you've made a good point there about the young player coming in next to him, and it's double fold really. you've got a young lad alongside him, so he can almost take on that responsibility of helping him through the game and developing him, and teaching him the way to go. But also, he looks across and sees the young lad doing it, then he's got no excuse to not do it himself as such. And our midfield as well, like I said, about Cottrell bringing the right players in and the best players in. The midfield three that he's gone with most often, when everybody's been fit, has been Davis, Kieftenbeld and Gardner. And those three know each other. Those three have worked well together in the past. And since Kieftenbeld come back in mid-October when Cottrell came in, he's probably been our player of the season, to be fair. But having Davis back alongside him and Gardner came in, just after Christmas as well. So having those three back in midfield, they're working better together, and there's an understanding between them. And I think, like you said with Cattermole, that the experience he's got, but the understanding that there's young kids around him, and he actually needs to step up now and play a part in this team to help those kids grow into the team. And
talking about youngsters, there's a young boy we've just brought in from Chelsea on loan, Jake Clark-Salter. Part of that, I think, was the under-20 team that won the World Cup for England, I think.
Yes.
And he comes really highly rated, but he was pretty poor against Cardiff, but had a very good game on Saturday. But the problem being,
is he a defender?
He's a centre half, yeah. So he plays in a back three alongside at the moment. It's been O'Shea and this escapes me, but he's had O'Shea and he's had Mark Wilson was just ahead of him, actually, come to think of it, in midfield against Cardiff. It's totally escaping me, this who played on Saturday. It's totally gone out of my mind, which is really, really bad of me. But we've had that many defensive. Tyus Browning, of course, from
Everton, yeah.
Have been impressed with this season, but he was impressive on Saturday. But I think what a lot of people said, and a lot of people kept their feet on the ground after Saturday, as good as a performance it was a very poor Hull side. I still feel like we need reinforcements, and the only player that we brought in so far is Clark-Salter. There's a lot of rumours going around about loan players. Ben Woodburn was apparently quite close, and then Klopp watched us against Cardiff and decided that wasn't a good idea, which I can't really blame him for that. Yeah. And there's a few other names that have been mentioned. Emerson Hindeman, who used to play for Rangers, a guy at Bournemouth just now. But we're kind of worried, if I'm honest with you, that we're not bringing enough in, because we've lost a fair amount. I mean, especially up front. Graben's gone back since we last spoke. James Vaughan, thank God, has left. But essentially, it's left us with two young boys who, to be honest, have scored one each, and they've looked all right in the game. But you don't want to put that kind of pressure on any young kid's shoulders. You want to let them blossom, not kind of make them shrink with the pressure. And they might not, but you don't want to leave that pressure to them. So we're a bit worried about the January transfer window, which brings me to Birmingham. I think any side in the bottom three, obviously ourselves, Bolton, Burton, Barnsley, Hull, will all be looking to bring names in. Who have you been linked to, and what do you think you need in the team?
Do you know what? It's so frightening how alike we are. We're absolutely the same. We haven't brought anybody in the window, and people are panicking a little bit, that although we have had an upturn in form and performances in the last month, we still look at that squad and think if Gallagher gets injured, if Chelsea recall Boga, or if one of the centrals gets injured, we're starting to struggle again. We're looking like a pretty average team again. So I think there is a concern that we haven't brought anybody in yet. Cottrell has let a few go. David Cottrell left on a free just before the window opened. His contract was terminated, so he's left.
We were linked to him, apparently.
Oh, okay.
It all went very quiet. It was the beginning of January because of his Wales connection.
Oh, of course, yeah, with Coleman, yeah.
Wasn't massively hyped about that, so thankfully that's died down a little bit, if I'm honest with you.
Now, to be fair, if you've got a set piece, he's dangerous. Apart from that, I think his time has passed by at this level as a winger. But so he's gone. We let Stephen Gleeson go to Ipswich. Who was the other one that went? That's escaped me as well. But we've still got about 4 or 5 loan players now. Whether that's something that Cottrell's looking at, whether at the moment we've got Cohen Bramall from Arsenal, who's a left back on loan, and Carl Jenkinson, who's from Arsenal as well on loan.
Holy God, Carl Jenkinson!
I know, yeah. I know, but we're playing Maxime Collin, who we bought from Brentford, who's a pretty good right back, to be fair. So, he's going to be difficult to displace. So we've got two fullbacks either side on loan from Arsenal that aren't playing at the moment. Now, whether that's something that he's trying to get them back to Arsenal, so that frees up a couple of loan spots, and we go for loan players rather than transfer fees, because I don't think we've got a lot of money. We've been linked to Hugo Rodallega, who's the former Fulham striker, who's in Turkey at the moment.
I was going to say, I forgot he existed. What's he doing these days, Turkey?
And the more worrying one, Carlton Cole this week. So we're scraping the barrel a bit at the moment. But I think most of the people we're linked with are strikers at the moment. But obviously, my personal view, Gallagher's not moving from that striker's position. He's the man with the number 9 shirt, and he's keeping it as far as I'm concerned. So I'd like to be linked with a few more midfielders, creative midfielders. Yeah, people who are good on the ball. So if we can bring one or two in, preferably a decent midfielder, then I think it'll appease a few of the fans. But we are a little bit concerned. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. I was going to ask about your financial situation, because obviously you spent not massive, but not in today's day and age, but you still spent quite well in the summer. I think
for our standards, it was big in the summer. Yeah, we backed Redknapp big time, and we fell for it. Yeah.
Where we pretty much had a copy of Reader's Digest and a can of baked beans to so and it got us what you'd expect, a lot of shite, and one of them's gone in James Vaughan. And it's funny you mentioned about loan signings, because we've got Browning in Galloway. Galloway is probably going to go back, I think.
Obviously, Graben's gone back.
That's true. On top of that, we've got Clock Salter now as well. But there still feels like there's so many positions to fill in the squad. And I think the annoying thing for us as fans is we pinpointed this before David Moyes had even gone, because we said, look, when you go down in that division, you almost need not necessarily 3 good players for every position, but it's almost like 3 players for each position because of how busy the league is.
Yes.
And we're very good at collecting right backs. We've got like Adam Matthews, Billy Jones, and Donald Love, who, quite frankly, he's not very good. As is Billy Jones. Adam Matthews, on the flip side, I've been quietly surprised by, but the rest of the positions were pretty short, and this is where the young boys have been getting their opportunities. I mean, if you look across the back, you've got Browning who's on loan, John O'Shea, who's probably going to be here until he's 75.
Captain still, yeah.
He's still the captain, yeah. It's weird, though. Sometimes when you take John O'Shea out of the team, you do miss something. I don't know what we miss.
Yeah.
But something goes missing.
I think I mentioned a couple of times on our show, when you're on such a terrible run, everyone who's not in the side is suddenly a world beater, aren't they? And you're crying out for him to come back in the side. But yeah.
We have a tendency to do the player gets better the more he is out injured. You know what I mean? The only one
you can't wait for him to get back, and then you realise that actually they weren't missing much anyway. But
yeah, they were shite all along. We've got one with that. I wish he would get better the more he's at the team. But Callum McManaman's been probably one player I was very excited by, and he's absolutely.
We were linked with him last summer, I think. Yeah,
he's terrible. He's awful.
Is he really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so bad. And McGeady started quite well, but McGeady's kind of been off colour, if I'm honest. Which I suppose sort of brings me to the next question. I wasn't going to ask this because I've asked you this already, but your answer at that point was Lewis Graben. So going into the game, obviously, just to finish off, my same standard normal questions. I don't like to deviate too much from them. He said Lewis Graben last time. Which player would you take from our club just now? And what do you expect the score to be on that Tuesday night?
It's a difficult one because I don't know a lot about your younger lads. Obviously, they've come in and you've mentioned that they've made a big impact, and I think it's very difficult to judge, and work out against them. I mean, Cottrell's got a job now where I'm assuming these kids are going to be the ones playing on Tuesday night, because at the moment you haven't got any other options up front.
Pretty much.
So I think it's a tricky one. We're not blessed with pace at the back. Roberts and Dean are good in the air and they're good at what they do. They're not exactly blessed with pace. Derby ripped us apart a little bit in terms of their fluidity and their movement up front, and I think that's a worry. You mentioned McGeady as someone who, I look at there, if he was in the Blues team, if he was one of the front three for us, could he keep the ball a bit better than we do? I think possibly. He's someone that's impressed me throughout his career, and his legs might have gone a little bit, but he scored a really good goal at Forest. He scored the winner at Forest, did he?
It was a really random dive and header. Apparently his first headed goal he's ever scored in his career, but it was a beauty.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good timing for it though, yeah. But I think your young lad, I mentioned last time as well, the Honeyman and Gooch as well as, so I think those younger players that, anyone with a bit of pace, just a bit of the unknown, if you like. I think that might be where we come unstuck a little bit. I think we can probably get at you defensively. We did at your place, and I'm sure with a pretty decent backing at home, we'll give it a go as well at our place. But I think that's my main concern. Yeah, you're a dip into the unknown in terms of your front players.
Yeah, you've got. I mean, Asoro got the winner on Saturday, and
yeah.
I before this season and before the last few months,
finish as well, yeah.
It was, and the kid's I think he's only 18, so he's very young. Our forward line they were both 18 each, so effectively the age of John O'Shea combined.
Yes, yeah.
But Asoro, he has got this kind of, and I was very critical of him beforehand. I thought he was too small, too weak. I thought, no, not for me. He's not what he's linked to be. But he was probably our most highly rated youngster, I think, on paper at that point. But since Coleman's came in, he's really came on in leaps and bounds. And his pace, if you're worried about pace, and Michael Dawson on Saturday seemed to panic every time he got the ball, and he should have won a penalty. He got booked for diving, but for me, it was a definite penalty. It was a stone, right. And every time he got the ball, he just wanted to run it, defend us, and attack people, and he was rewarded with a goal, and it was a cracking finish for such a young lad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think
very good finish.
It's that directness as well. Young kids, they're not frightened. They're not scarred by former performances or past seasons. You've been on a pretty rocky road the last few years, but obviously these kids that weren't involved in any of that, and it is that freedom to go out and express yourself and have a go, and make a name for yourself. And I think fair play for the two lads up front. They've both got a winner in 1-0 home wins, which have been really big for you so far.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they say I posted something on Twitter the other day, which I thought was funny, but I didn't get the hits I wanted. But they say you cannot win games with the kids, or you kind of just bring the kids in. But 6 points later, and 6 points is huge in a relegation battle.
Well, especially when it's so tight down the bottom as well, like you mentioned, that those 6 points, if you get another 6 points in the next two games, you're almost up, to 16th, 15th position. So, the big goals. And like you say, we're a bit reliant on Gallagher at the moment. He's getting most of our goals. And to be fair to the two kids up front for you, that they're getting your goals in big games.
Yeah, no, I'm going to totally agree. And I think it's nice, because I thought we'd struggle without grabbing, so it's been nice to see the young lads chip in. So I suppose, just to leave you, what's your prediction? Because you sound a bit more positive than last time. So
Yeah. Normally, we've done okay against the teams in and around the playoff zone and struggled against teams at the bottom at home. But I think we have got a bit of a thing going at the moment. The last home game we got beat by Derby, but before that we've had 2 or 3 decent performances at home, and I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic this time. I think I'll go with a 2-1 home win.
I fancy a draw. I fancy another 1-1. I think both sides probably won't go for it immediately. Kind of play.
Yes, I agree with that.
Safer. Yeah. You don't want to be going hell for leather and going 1 or 2 down straight away. And both our sides have a vulnerability to do that. And I think I'd probably take a draw. I think not letting you gain on us. It would be nice to win, but in this league, it could be 7-0 to any of us, and it wouldn't be surprising. It's a mental league.
It wouldn't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a crazy league. But thanks for coming on again, as always, Chris. I'm going to say,
anytime,
like I always do, I hope you have a horrible, horrible Tuesday. I hope it's Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday we play.
Yeah, Tuesday night. Yeah,
I thought I'd really made a faux pas there. Because
you haven't got a game this weekend, have you? But we've got Huddersfield away in the cup. So you've got a little bit of a rest on us, which could play a part.
That is true, actually. That is very true. Don't make me feel too confident. I got egg on my face last time, so.
Yeah.
Again, as always, like I say, Chris, thanks for coming on. Good to catch up. Nice to hear you feeling a bit more positive.
And you,
I hope just for a little bit, like I say, next week, your positivity drops a tad. But always good to have you on, mate. Thanks for coming on.
No problem, and you. Cheers.
Cheers, bud. that is the end of, I think it's episode 8. I think we confirmed it was episode 8. I think I was checking as we were chatting, and it's episode 8. Doesn't feel like it's been that many. Still feels like quite a fresh thing to me. But yeah, two sides who actually, funnily enough, second bottom, third bottom, and we're both feeling a little bit positive. But that's what 3 points does. And I think, Chris Coleman alluded to that a few weeks ago before the Fulham game. Said, if you're winning games, atmosphere isn't spoken about in the stadium, and fan disruption or a sadness or whatever you want to call it isn't spoken about in the media. It's all about the team and how they're winning and the positivity around the place. 3 points can change everything. If 3 points makes me feel this positive, imagine what 6 points can do. As always, I hope you join me again next time we speak, and I've got another 3 points to speak about, like I have done a few times this season. I'm fully on the Chris Coleman bus, if there's such a thing. I think we're all behind him. I think hopefully by the time we speak, we're at the 30th of January, the next game. We've got a few more signings in. We're looking a little bit more positive, and let's climb that table. Thanks for joining in. Cheers.